All right, and we'll get started. So welcome again to our webinar on year-end processes, reports, important dates, and rollover. We've got quite a few people here today from different size libraries. Thanks so much for telling us where you're joining us from today in the chat. This webinar today will be probably around 30 to 45 minutes, depending on how quickly I talk. Sometimes when I'm behind the computer, I tend to get going a little bit, so feel free to interrupt me with questions throughout. We've got Jessica here in the background as our tech support. So if you are having any technical issues at all, you can throw those in the chat and she'll do her best to help you out throughout the webinar. So let's get started. And I hope you can all see my screen and see the PowerPoint. If you can't see it, then just throw a note in the chat. But you should see our lovely logo. Looks good. Thanks, Jessica. And we'll get going here. All right, so by the end of today's session, what I hope you will understand is our year-end timelines here at Yellowhead and how that will affect some of the services that we offer and perhaps your year-end timelines and processes too. That you'll understand that you need to complete your orders before the year-end cutoff and what that means, and also that you'll be able to identify what we will send you to help you out with your year-end reconciliation, as well as your annual reports in the new year in January. So today's webinar is primarily from the perspective of collections and resource sharing. And that is because a lot of the year-end reconciliation that happens at Yellowhead happens between our department and accounting, because we are doing all of the acquisitions. So we're doing all of the ordering. We do your invoicing for all of your new books. We look after reconciliation for our own HQ collections and our kits and all of that kind of thing in the department. So that's why we're speaking mostly from this perspective today. I do have a few slides to share on behalf of Lena and Andrew and Robin Rem in technology services, and I'll do that at the end with a few pieces of information about annual report. So right now, I like to start with kind of our current environment and what's happening right now. Last year, when I was updating this presentation, this slide was a little bit bleaker than it is this year. So I'm happy to report that the current environment that we're in is getting back to kind of pre-COVID levels of our fill rate. And what that means is that we're experiencing less supplier delays. Our average fill rate for regular ULS orders, this is a little fun fact for you, is around 28 days. That was pre-COVID. So what that means is that if you ordered a book that was published, newer, so not a special order book, but a readily available book, it would take on average 28 days for that title to arrive at Yellowhead, which is a pretty good fill rate when you consider the volume that we order from ULS and the discounts that we get. So we're getting back to that fill rate, which is really good because it means that we're getting less and less long back ordered items. So I know that Taryn from Beaumont just sent us in a request to say, hey, can you check in on these items that were ordered quite a while ago and haven't come in yet? Can you tell us what's going on with them? And that's because for the last 2.5 years, we have let a lot of items go on what I've been calling long back ordered. So what that means is that when you put in an order, we give the vendor 90 days to fill that order. And this is just a regular order. So not hot list or anything pre-publication, but just a regular order off CCD or off a vendor website. We give them 90 days. If they don't fill that order within the 90 days, an item goes into what's called a pending claim status. And then we check in with the vendor to say, hey, what's going on with this item? Is it canceled? Is there a publisher delay? Is it shipping shortly? And then we change the status of the item in Polaris to back ordered. That was our pre-COVID procedure. But since COVID, we have had to leave some things on what I term long back order because of publishing delays, shipping delays, etc. So there are some things that some folks have encumbered on their accounts that they may have ordered in 2021 that are still on back order. But what we are going to do this year is we're going to be doing a big cleanup of all this long back ordered, because I've been waiting kind of for things to start getting back to some semblance of what we were used to before the pandemic. And that's finally starting to happen with our suppliers. So we're going to clean up over the next few months this long back ordered items. If you haven't already, as I mentioned, I know Taryn and I've been working with Leduc as well on this. You could request a long back ordered list from us, and we'll send that to you. And we'll be working though with our vendors for every library between now and the end of the year to clean up anything that's really old. And then that will show up on either your canceled list, which we'll talk about when we send you your canceled list at the end of the year, or it will show up on your on order list if the vendor can tell us that it's still coming, or we will be asking you if you want to reorder it. If for some reason we have to cancel the old order and put it on order again, we'll check with you on that. So that's kind of where we're at right now. So what is year end in CRS? Essentially, it's wrapping up all of our orders and receiving for the year. So our acquisitions processes, it involves setting up and getting ready for the next year. So we set up all of your new allotment dollars. So you get a big new pot of money to spend. We set up standing orders for the upcoming years. And then we do a lot of detailed work with rolling over accounts and orders to ensure that everything is accurate. And you'll get a sense as I run through this why that's really important when we start talking about allotment and additional allotment that you may not have spent. Now, this takes us time to do all of this work, which is why we have things like a cutoff for orders and a cutoff for shipping. And we also want to be supportive and flexible for all of you in the libraries to ensure that you're able to do your year-end reconciliation with the processes and the local procedures you have in place. We know all of you are autonomous libraries with different needs and requirements from your auditors, from your municipalities, from your boards. So we want to make sure that, we're giving you enough time to get the things that you need completed as well. So for acquisitions, we run in fiscal years in Polaris. So right now we are on the 2022 ASGY fiscal year. What we have to do in order to reconcile that fiscal year is we have to halt ordering in order to reconcile all of the accounts. We encourage you to follow a similar timeline as us for the most accurate information. Of course, as I mentioned in the previous slide, you have your own processes and procedures, and that's totally okay. If at any point in this presentation, and I'll reiterate this a few times, there's things that we can do to help support you better with your local timelines, please reach out to me and let me know. I've been improving this process, I hope, quite a bit for the last couple of years. And this is the first year for me that I'm not making any big changes, because last year, after the big changes we made last year, and working with Daria for the first time on year end, we put in some new things that have been working well. And I think we're in a good, steady state now. But of course, if you need something from us, please let us know. So we reconcile your additional allotment contributions. This is really important. We make sure that the money that you sent in during the year is recorded in Polaris. We make sure that any digital content contributions that you may have made to purchase Overdrive material has been entered into Polaris, and that we've purchased the Overdrive credits, as well as spending out that money in Overdrive too. We like to do that in the same fiscal year in which it is contributed. And then we reconcile all of our purchases and ordering against our headquarters collections here, which includes professional development, curriculum support, and kits. So one of the things I mentioned is standing orders. So we take time at the end of the year in order to get ready for standing orders for the upcoming year, setting things up. And we do this because we're halting ordering in December, and you'll see those dates are coming up. Because we have some time that we're not taking orders, we take that time to do this standing order setup. Now you may be saying, what are standing orders? I've never heard of this before, or I don't use these. Well, we have what we call 2 standing order options with our vendor, which is ULS. That's who we use for these. And we have a juvenile and teen series and paperback standing order list, as well as an adult paperback standing order list. And this is really a convenient option for libraries who may not want to do active collection development in some of these areas, meaning checking CCD super forthcoming every month, keeping track of certain popular series. Setting up a standing order can really help streamline your collection development in these areas. It's convenient for smaller libraries who may not have a large budget in terms to make sure that you're always getting new items in every month that are lower cost, so they can fit into your budget, your allotment better. And then it's also convenient if you're in a library that has a lot of browsing patrons, because this is a lot of paperbacks. Those often ends up on your shelf right away. They may not, be going out for holds right away. And so it's great for if you have a large browsing population in your library. So what these are is that with the juvenile and teen series paperbacks, it's a list that comes out. It's quite long. It can be a little intimidating and a little cumbersome, but ULS tries to make it easy by putting it into different formats and different levels. There's more and more graphic novels now being included in this too. So if you're looking to start a juvenile graphic novel collection or add more graphic novels and not have to, like I said, kind of pay attention to what's coming out every month, a great way to do this is put some on standing order. And what it means is that if, let's say you put your Geronimo Stilton on standing order, every time a Geronimo Stilton is published in 2023, you'll get that book as soon as it's published in that month standing order. And it will just come to you, and then you'll be charged off your allotment or additional allotment or bill direct, however you choose. And then that book is on your shelf and you didn't have to worry about paying attention. Oh, when is the next one coming out? With the adult paperbacks, it doesn't go by series, it goes by genre. So there's different genres such as Western, you can just do bestsellers, romance, sci-fi thriller, or sci-fi thriller, I think are 2 different ones, and Christian fiction. And there's a maximum you can get every month. And the vendor does the best job they can to estimate how many new adult paperbacks of those genres they think will come out every year. So or every month, sorry. So if you put 10 Westerns on your standing order per month and only 8 come out that month, then you'll only get 8, but they'll send you kind of that maximum. The great thing about standing orders is that we're very flexible with these now. Even though we try to get them all set up in kind of November, December, January, if you need to make any changes, or if you're right now going, oh, I have too many other things to worry about, this is not my highest priority. But let's say in March, you go, oh, I remember Josie said something about these standing orders. We can always get you set up at any point in the year. We can make changes at any point in the year, and we can also cancel at any point in the year. So no rush on this, but you will see the standing order paperback plan usually comes out first in end of November, and we usually have a deadline in December for getting that back to us. And then juvenile, teen, and series list, that has been later and later. I'm hoping it gets to us in December, but the vendor may not have it ready for us until January. So then we'll get that out to you as soon as we can. If you don't know your current setup for standing orders, or if you're a newer library manager and you've never heard of standing orders before, you can always send us an email and ask. If you want some help trying to figure out what you should do, maybe you had some this past year, but you're not really sure, and you kind of just want to talk it out a little bit, then, send us an email and we can help you, figure out what will work best, or at least what to try. It doesn't hurt to try. So we do that at the end of the year. And then this is our big slide. So if you remember nothing else from this presentation, this is the most important piece, is our year-end timeline. So this year, our deadline to order for the 2022 fiscal year is Thursday, December 8th. That means by midnight of that night, all orders must be in. And then we process them on Friday the 9th, and then that's it. We actually turn off we have a special portal, I don't know, something that sends our orders to the vendors electronically with a click of a button. And we actually turn that off on Friday, December 9th. So we cannot even send an order to a vendor after the 9th. We do this for all of TRAC. It's not just our region, it's for every region, and it's so that everybody has that period of time to do their year-end and reconciliation and get the most accurate information they can for themselves and their libraries. We will be continuing to receive and catalog and ship new books until Friday, December 16th. So that means normally we get our ULS orders on a Friday. So we would get our last order on Friday, December 9th, and then we'll receive it, catalog it, and get it ready for shipping so that everything is in the bins by 4:30 on the 16th, so that it will be delivered to you the week of the 19th to the 22nd. Okay, so anything that arrives at YRL after, I would say probably after the 18th, we probably won't receive, we won't be able to get it done. We'll just stick around for the new year. And we'll go through the 2023 fiscal year. And what this does is it ensures that we will not be sending you any invoices past the 22nd. So that week of the 19th to the 22nd is our last week open for the year and our last set of van runs for the year. So you'll receive all your new books, your packing slips, and invoices up to the 22nd, and then you won't receive anything else from us for the 2022 fiscal year after that. Now, with this being said, I did mention earlier that there is some flexibility in some of these timelines. If you are a library who uses Bill Direct and you need your invoices into your municipality or your board sooner than the 22nd, we can cut off receiving for you earlier. What that means is that if we cut off receiving for you, let's say the week before or the 2 weeks before, it means anything we get for you after that cutoff, we will hold on to until 2023. So that is an option for you if you need to get your items reconciled sooner than the 22nd, okay? If that piqued your interest and you're going, oh, I think I might need that, then please let me know as soon as you can, and we'll work out a procedure for your library. During that week of December 19th to 22nd will also be when we do our rollover in Polaris, rolling everything over from 2022 to 2023. We'll close off 2022, open 2023. And during a little piece of that time, right as we close off 2022 and before we open up 2023, that is when we run all of your year-end reports. And I'll go through that in detail. The reason that we do it so specifically in that period of time is so that we can get you the most accurate information for 2022, okay? January 11th is a date to note because that is the guaranteed day that your new allotment will display in your funds in CCD. In years past, we've really endeavored to get it into your funds before we break in December, but with some, there's been some things that have caused a little bit of delay in the last couple of years and some stress about, oh, we've got to do this, we've got to get this done. And then I've heard from a lot of libraries, oh, we don't even look at it till mid-January. So I decided to give ourselves here at Yellowhead a little bit of a break this year and put a longer deadline on it, but to just in case we need it. If everything goes smoothly, then you'll see that money in your funds possibly by the 23rd. But just in case we run into something with populations, or if we don't get allotment letters back in a reasonable length of time from different boards and things like that, we're just going to give ourselves a little extra time so that we can make sure the allotment amounts are accurate, because nothing drives me more crazy than rushing to put it all in and then having to make a bunch of changes afterwards. So that's kind of my last change, I guess. So I guess I am making a change for this year, is extending that out, that you might not see that new money until the midweek of the second week of January. Now, this all being said, you may create and submit CCD orders between December 8th and January, if you'd like, but we will not process those orders until 2023. Okay. We started this a couple of years ago in order to allow some flexibilities for libraries who had staff who would take a lot of time off in January, but still had acquisitions work they wanted to get done in December. So that's why we started doing this. So please note that if that applies to you, you can still do collection development from CCD. We'll still have lists up there. Your access will not be cut off at all after December 8th, but know that anything you submit will not be approved and closed and submitted to the vendor until January. Okay. All right. I haven't even stopped to take a breath for questions, and I'm just assuming, because I don't see any in the chat, that this is all coming in clear. And I'm trying not to speak too fast, so hopefully it's okay. All right, I'll just keep going. Year-end reports. So this is what we send to you. Now, a few years ago, this was a big change we made, actually, a few years ago. This is one of the first changes that I made when I came into this role, is sending you all of these every year. And who do I send them to? I send them either to the library manager, or if the library has a dedicated acquisitions or collection development staff member, then I send them there as well as to the library manager too. We send them by email. They're usually PDFs, and they may not come from myself. They may come from a CRS staff member. So if you don't see them in your email by the 22nd, please let me know, or please check your spam. And we send these to you to try to be helpful for your own year-end reconciliation. The reason that we have started running these and sending them to you is so that because we know when that accurate window is, and I've always felt that it was hard to say to you, oh, I'll let you know exactly when that accurate window is and make sure you stop everything here to run these reports. So I said, why don't we just run them and send them? And that way it just makes everybody's lives easier. Because if we don't run them in that kind of window before we the stopping all of the acquisition stuff and then the rollover, we don't run them in that period, then what happens is that if you ask me in the new year, oh, I forgot, I didn't run it, can you run it for me? It's not going to be accurate, because we'll have already started other acquisitions, things going. There might be things that end up changing from on order to, or from on order to received. All sorts of little things can happen. So we do this so that you get the most accurate information about 2022. And then it's easier on you and it's easier on us, because then I'm not stressed about sending you inaccurate information, because that's another thing I don't like to do. I want to send you as accurate a picture as I can for your processes. So that's a really big picture. So you've probably already read this slide because I've talked so much about it. We send you a detailed on-order report. This may include some back-ordered item this year. I put may because we're doing that cleanup of long back-ordered, but and I haven't decided yet where our cutoff will be. I might cut off back-ordered at June 2022, meaning that anything from before then is either going to be canceled, reordered, or dealt with. I'm not quite sure yet. I have to start running the data and looking at it before I make that decision. I'm going to kind of let the data talk to me on that. So that's why I say it may include that. But we'll let you know when we send you the email, kind of what is, if it does include back ordered. You'll hear from me and you'll understand that. It will include a canceled items report. So this will include things that we have had to mark canceled because the vendor has canceled them, because the publisher has canceled them for various reasons. There is no why in this email as to why they were canceled, but if you have questions, you can email us and ask. There is a myriad of reasons why. Sometimes the vendor doesn't tell us, they just say this is canceled. So there can be lots of changes. And then you'll see what got canceled throughout the year in 2022. And you can, reconcile your books that way. Then the last one, and this is the one that is important that we run in this little window of time, is the fund expenditure report. So this tells you what you actually received in 2022 from Yellowhead, okay? And this is important. I think it's a really good report to use for your reconciliation, just to make sure that what's showing on your spreadsheets is coming in. You can double check against this report in Polaris and say, yes, this actually came in. I think this report has been quite useful to libraries in the past, and that's why we continue to run it. It can also just be a quick report just to see, in a nutshell, like what all came in this year. There are some oddities in this report in terms of fund balances aren't always accurate in it. So I always just say ignore that part of the header. But Lena and Andrew are taking some courses that I hope will help us to figure out for next year how we can maybe customize and improve this fund expenditure report so that we can give you more accurate balances in that report. So maybe there'll be some new and improved things coming next year. Oh, one more thing for year-end reports before I go on is if there's something in here that you're not seeing that you think you would benefit from or like to see, please let me know. The sooner the better, because then we can kind of schedule that in, or we can figure out, might be a report we have to build in simply, but if there's something that you're looking for as you're thinking about your year-end reconciliation, reach out to us and let us know what you may need, and we'll see if we can build it in Simply. We have quite some robust tools in Simply to run acquisitions things, but they're just a little tricky. So sometimes it takes us a few times to get it all figured out. Okay, just a few quick notes on funds. So we have 3 different ways in which you can use funds through Yellowhead. So all of you get an allotment fund. This includes your amounts that are assigned to your library from various boards. So for instance, if you are if you're near Summer Villages who are members of Yellowhead and they don't have a library, they assign their allotment funds to the libraries who are closest to them in geographic area. So Darwell, for instance, received some allotment funds from Summer Villages. The allotment funds come from the levy that's paid from our municipal members to Yellowhead in order to provide services. 75 cents per capita comes back to the libraries from that levy directly into allotment. So they pay into that levy, and then you get 75 cents per capita back from those membership fees, essentially, and that's what the allotment is. Additional allotment, some of you may use this because you send in your own local collection dollars for wire else to hold on to, and then you spend against it, and it just subtracts as you spend, similar to the allotment. And then some of you use bill direct, which means that we invoice you for things that you purchase. Bill direct funds, I'm going to talk a little bit more about, I think, in a couple of slides in terms of cutting off ordering. If you do use bill direct, it might be something that you want to reach out and chat to me about a little bit this year. Because last year we ran into some tricky situations with bill direct where libraries who ordered bill direct in November needed the items to come in right away. They didn't, so then we had to switch all of it over to allotment before the end of the year. So if you're a library who uses bill direct and you think that you need to have all of the items that you ordered through bill direct come in and be invoiced by the end, please let me know. And I do know there are already, there are some people in here who I work with every year on that. So if you're one of those people that we work together every year on that, I'm just taking that we'll still continue to do the same thing this year. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. Okay. Multiple funds. If you use more than one of these funds, you will receive reports for each fund. The reports that I said, the cancel on order, you'll receive one for each fund. Okay, so almost to the end here. A few frequently asked questions. Do I lose my allotment if anything is left unspent? No, you do not. And this is why we do such, why we really pay attention. Attention to detail is big with our reconciliation. We make sure we do a quadruple check to make sure that all of the account balances and unordered or encumbered items are rolling over accurately in Polaris so that you do not lose any money. This is what happens sometimes if people have extra local collection dollars, they'll send it in as additional allotment so that it will roll over and they won't lose it. So that's another option, but we'll talk a little bit about that in another couple slides. Encumbered in CCD, if anybody is wondering, essentially means on order. That's just something that we use because it's in Polaris, but essentially if you see something that says encumbered, it means it's on order. So we're waiting for it to arrive. And what happens to the items still on order? They roll over as well as encumbrances into the new fiscal year. So this is why I mentioned the bill direct piece. If you use bill direct and you need to get everything, you know, basically that bill direct needs to be zeroed by the end of the year, let me know because we'll need to make sure that we switch funds or cancel or do something. If you have any encumbrances into November. My other recommendation, if you use bill direct and you need it to be zeroed essentially by the end of the year, is if you're putting in orders from now moving forward, October, November, please do not use bill direct. Please use your allotment. Even if your allotment has to go into the negative, we could switch them back to bill direct for 2023 if you want. We can do some fancy switching around. But it will save us time in December if you just put them in through allotment. Like I said, that's only if you need that bill direct to be zero by the end of the year. What do you do if you want to make another overdrive contribution? Deadline for submitting funds is Friday, December 9th. So if you're doing an EFT or an additional allotment check for overdrive, please have that to us by December 9th. And if you are submitting funds, or if you have and you want to do the picking of the titles, you need to have your carts created by December 16th so that we can get all of that purchased and reconciled on our end before the 22nd. If you want to submit extra funds just for additional allotment purchases, you must have those checks into us or the EFTs, the electronic fund transfer to us by Friday, December 9th as well. You don't have to spend it out before the end of the year at all, but we have to have that money deposited and into Polaris before we roll over. Another question that we get a lot is, how does year-to-date work? If any of you work in Simply Reports or ever look at year-to-date or previous year-to-date in Polaris, year-to-date is switched in January. So it is an automatic process that switches in Polaris at 1 a.m. on January 1st, it switches. So this means that currently year-to-date, if you use that function, to run reports in Polaris or in Simply, or look at that, year-to-date means January 1st, 2022 until now, to date. Previous year-to-date currently is 2021, because that's the previous year-to-date. So on January 1st, 2023, your new year-to-date will be January 2023, and your current year-to-date will be, previous year-to-date will be 2022. This is important when we start talking about running those reports and why we're running reports in certain windows of time, because if you want to do something and find out year-to-date and you run the report with that parameter on January 2nd, you're only getting 2 days worth of data and you were probably closed on the 1st. So that's when you've got to switch over to that previous year-to-date if you want the 2022 information. When will new allotment appear in your account? By January 11th of the new year. And how is it calculated? So after it appears in your fund, by the end of January, you'll receive a letter that outlines the funds that were allocated to your library by boards or municipalities in your geographic area. And of course, if you have questions about that, you can always ask. A couple notes on behalf of Lena, Andrew, Robin, Rem, and Technology Services. Some of you may do some ordering for hardware, receipt printers, fileable printers, computers through our Technology Services department. They are recommending an order deadline of November 1st. I just checked in with Rob about this today, and he said that their fill rate for technology has been pretty good, but he does still recommend getting your orders in sooner than later so that we can get the invoices to you and you can get them paid in this fiscal year. If you've been ordering technology, you'll notice that over the last year, some changes have been made to invoicing, in that your invoice will come with the item now instead of afterwards. So you'll be able to get that item, get your invoice, get it paid, and then the people who do your books will be happy too, that it will all be done by the end of the year. And last piece of information is on reports from Technology Services. So now we're kind of switching from year-end into annual reports. So we're talking about what happened in 2022. So the annual report, we run that every year in Polaris for the Polaris information, and then we send that to you in January in an email in a PDF. This is another really important report. You can access it in Polaris, but it is the same thing as those acquisitions reports, in that if you don't run it in a certain window of time, it's not accurate. So we run it in the exact correct window of time to make it as accurate as possible for your library. So please do not run this yourself. You'll see it in the Polaris list of reports, but please wait for us to email you this report. We do it very promptly. It's the first thing TS does in the year. My first thing is allotment. Their first thing is annual report. So this is our first priority in the new year, to get this information so that you can have it readily available for your PLSB LibPass annual report. PLSB has made some changes. I don't know if you've been attending their webinar on annual report changes, and we have made the necessary changes to the Polaris report that were needed in order for you to accurately fill in your PLSB report this year. Okay, so you can rest assured that we're making those changes on our end so that you have what you'll need. The other piece that we provide to you is annual usage statistics on e-resources such as Overdrive and Hoopla. your website visits, how many people viewed pages and visited your website, your wireless statistics, those are all provided by us on our intranet under statistics, okay? And when we send out the annual report to you, usually Andrew or Elena will include a link to those statistics so that everything, you can just get it, all of that information from that one email. Your annual report, just a little plug for the annual report, if you've never filled it out, is really important. It is one of 2 pieces of information that you have to provide to PLSB in order to get your operating grant. So you have to give them an annual report every year, and you have to provide a plan of service. If your library boards do not do that, you do not get your operating grant. So the annual report is not something to be taken lightly. You need to make sure you do that and fill that in as accurately as possible. My recommendation, if you are a newer library manager in this webinar today, is to find the login for LibPass and look at your annual report from last year and look at LibPass and all of the fields that you have to fill in so that you can collect any stats that you need before the end of this year. So it's October 13th today. You have, a couple of, 2.5 months left in the year to calculate your programming statistics, how many people walked in the door of your library, your patron interactions, your community outreach events, and all of those things. So we provide you, the statistics on your circulations, your borrowing, your collections, virtual and physical, your website analytics, those types of things. But there are some autonomous, like local services, such as your programming, your patron interactions, that you need to collect those stats. So I would highly recommend logging into LibPass, looking at last year's, and then looking, I don't know if this year's is uploaded, but if you look at last year's, at least you'll get a sense of what needs to be collected. And then you can just collect a snapshot. So collect the stats for a day or a week, and then you multiply it to get an estimate for the year. So that's my little I always used to, that used to be our plug, Lena and I's plug, when we were in former client services. So I'll give that plug on behalf of Lena and myself again today for your annual reports. All right, and that is all I have for today. So your takeaways: YRL sends you important things to help you out in terms of year-end reports for your acquisitions processes and your annual reports. We send those to you so that you get the most accurate information that you can. We get that out of the database for you and send that to you, okay? Ordering deadlines, December, that first kind of full week in December, Thursday, December 8th. So please submit all your orders for 2022 by then. You can continue to order in CCD afterwards, but remember, they won't be put forward until January. And then, if I'm remembering, the last objective was the reports, the deadlines, and there might have been one more. Hopefully we hit that one too. Are there any questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any yet. I'll just keep talking for a minute. Feel free to type in your questions. If you do have any questions at any point in time, or if I mention something that seems relevant to your library, please reach out. You can reach out to me directly. You can always reach out to Ask YRL, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. If you think that you need a little bit of a different process and you want all your invoices, before earlier in December, and you want to kind of cut off receiving for your library earlier than what we do, that's fine. Just reach out to me and let me know. The sooner the better for all of this. If you need help with standing orders or have questions about that, once again, just let us know. We're here to help and make this as easy and as easy as possible for you, we hope. We know that this kind of thing, I know this kind of thing because I have to do the reconciliation every year, is is not hard. So I have empathy for all of you who have to do it in your libraries too. It's not easy. You know, when I'm dealing with numbers, I have to sit in my office and concentrate and do it first thing in the morning. So that's also my other little tip for you, is figure out when the best time of day for you to deal with numbers is if you're not a numbers person, and then block off that time in your calendar. That's something I've had to learn over the last few years. All right, so I don't see any questions. So we'll sign off. Thank you all so much for coming today. You know, I really hope that you learned something and that this was helpful. And I hope to hear from you if you have any further questions. And thank you to Jessica and LDS for letting me join you today for this webinar. I really like giving this webinar. I think it just helps us all to feel a little bit better about where we're at with year-end things. So thanks again. Enjoy the sunny weather out there. I hope it's sunny where you are, and we'll talk to you all soon, okay? Have a great day. Bye.
Thanks, Josie. That was good. Thank you.
No problem.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.